huge hoax, probably pushed by the Dems, probably pushed by those libs, you know. And so
what's the Dow out today? Have we checked?
About 30,000.
We gotta set up the podcast. We can't be doing this.
Anything. Who cares about it?
No, 49,500. We're good.
This is about to be a short one. Okay. Sauter, can you please clear some things up here? Because it looks like the administration has maybe told some lies. And the last time you came down here, you broke down this Epstein thing in an absolutely amazing way. Clearly, you've been dedicated to this and not, raising your newborn child. We greatly appreciate that. So we'd like you to get to the bottom of it. Is it possible that Ms. Barbie is lying?
Well, let's run
lie.
it back. So everybody's focused on her most recent disastrous performance where she tries to obfuscate. She tells Thomas Massey, you're an anti-Trumper, you have TDS. She's saying the Dow's at 50,000. What's wrong with all of you for caring about this? Well, I would say, Ms. Bondi, what's wrong with you? So, Griffin, can we go ahead and pull it up? That Bondi list is on my desk. This is a clip almost from a year ago, actually. Back February 21st, almost exactly 1 year ago to the day. And here's what she said from the steps of the White House lawn about how the list is on her desk. Let's take a listen.
DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Not yet. She said she had a truckload of files that were literally on her desk, right? That's what she said. She had a truckload of files that were on her desk. That's what she said on February 21st from the steps of the White House.
That was a year ago?
That was almost exactly 1 year ago to the day that you and I are all taping.
If you see the way that she's aged, you must believe there's some horrific stuff.
I will let you all speculate as to that.
We are on a Rotura ride.
Yeah, Rotura ride. That's it.
Review because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Not yet. She said she had a truckload of files that were literally on her desk, right? That's what she said. She had a truckload of files that were on her desk. That's what she said on February 21st from the steps of the White House.
That was a year ago?
That was almost exactly 1 year ago to the day that you and I are all taping.
If you see the way that she's aged, you must believe there's some horrific stuff.
I will let you all speculate as to that.
We are on a Rotura ride.
Yeah, Rotura ride. That's it. No free ads though. Well, you can't even get it. It's clinical trial. There's also Kash Patel. Shall we remember Kash Patel on before Congress? This was not that long ago. Griffin is the very first element that we have in the administration.
Griffin is here.
Griffin who's here.
Pulls up stuff faster than Joe.
Real quick, if you guys are new, go ahead and subscribe. But this is the Flagrant podcast I'm watching right now. Andrew Schultz. He's on a funny show called Tires. I'm not a huge fan of what he did last year to help Donald Trump get into office without educating himself with what Donald Trump is all about. But he's waking up, just like the rest of the manosphere podcasters, to what Donald Trump really is, who he represents, the 1%, not the rest of us. Donald Trump represents him and his billionaire class. Stan Lee, huh? Okay. Simp. Hi. Yep, people call me a simp when they're stupid, but okay. I never met a guy that I respect that goes around calling people simps, so there you go. Whatever your name is. Nonins. You sound like an idiot. Anyway, guys, go ahead and subscribe if you're not that guy. And let's watch the rest of this podcast. It's pretty interesting. I watched it yesterday.
Information that Jeffrey Epstein, traffic miners, Kash Patel, the FBI director.
Cash money.
No credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals. And the information we have, again, is limited.
So the answer is no one.
For the information that we have
In the file.
in the case file.
So that was Kash Patel. There's no credible information that Jeffrey Epstein traffic minors. And I can say unequivocally that that is just like not true. Now, you can try to parse the language around the word of trafficking, but if we stick specifically with the question of abuse from everything that we've learned, so the body of information that I'm working from today is all of the 3 million files that were released by the Department of Justice. As a reminder, there are 3 million more files. In fact, Channel 4 News in the UK just did an expose saying that in fact there might be only 2%.
If you guys don't know who that is, that's Sagar and Jetty. He's a right-wing podcaster on Breaking Points, which is a news channel I recommend to anybody who wants straight-up news. It's him, the right-winger, and then Crystal Ball is the left-wing part of the news channel, but they give it straight up. They're honest. They're not always right. Sagar's often wrong, in my opinion, and he's kind of an ageist, and he hates immigrants. His parents were immigrants, but him and I agree on one thing, that the Epstein files are atrocious. People need to go down for the Epstein files, and Trump is all over the Epstein files. Go ahead and subscribe, guys, if you want to help out the channel. Help out yourself and get a subscription to Mint Mobile. I get a little commission if you use the link below, but I've been using Mint Mobile. I don't normally do sponsors, but I've been using Mint Mobile for 10 years, and it's by far saved me hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. Yeah, Trump is in the files. Trump is in the 1% of files they left 5,000 times. If all the files come out, he'll be in them thousands and thousands of times. Actually, right now, I'm not a Kamala fan, so don't take me as that. I'm a Bernie guy, you know. I think politicians should work for the people, not for the billionaire class. But right now, Kamala, you know, if they redid the election, polls are saying that Kamala, and I'll get to that in a little while, but polls are saying that Kamala would win if they redid the election today. Because Trump is fucked up so bad. Let's face it, the economy's not any better. Can you buy a house? You know, nobody can afford to retire, nothing like that. The economy sucks, and he's starting wars in Iran. You want more 20-year wars like the last Republican started, George W. Bush, that made our country much poorer, killed a lot of our countrymen, killed, you know, kids of friends of mine and friends of mine. Okay, let's keep watching this.
The files that have been released right now, so it's like 98% of the information hasn't been, but we can say, you know, empirically, based on these files, as well as a hacked trove of emails I had access to through my colleagues and friends over at Dropside News, 40,000 emails, we can say that's not true. And I give you a very simple and easy example, Griffin, it's under Pizzagate in the spreadsheet, more than 20 girls, my own tweet. This was one of my own stories that I broke from one of the hacked emails that I found inside of Jeffrey Epstein's own sent inbox, where he sent himself a memo. If you click on that, just so they can read the text message, here's the email he wrote to himself, privileged and confidential, spelling confidential wrong. He says, though I require girls over 18, the results don't reflect it. The feds have spoken to or know of girls between the ages of 16 to 18. If we extrapolate, we should assume there are 20 girls in that age range. That's a message that he wrote to himself in 2007, specifically in a sent inbox that was meant eventually for forwarding to his own private.
And the FBI has access to this.
So not only does the FBI have access to this, they're saying that the FBI had knowledge of that information, right? So this is an email directly where he's acknowledging that there are 20 underage women that he specifically, that they knew about from the FBI. So what's the new actual information?
But are you alleging that Cash could be lying to girls?
Right, well, that's a very interesting question, isn't it, right, under the Congress? Now, is it technically a lie if you never get prosecuted for the lie, if the people who were there were in charge of it? These are interesting questions as to what's actually in power. But if we look at Pam Bondi, her past claims, remember she also had that influencer event, handed out Epstein files, part one. Nobody forced Cash Patel to come on podcasts before the election to say, I'm going to release all this information. Pam Bondi to say, I have a client list on my desk, to hand out these client binders, and then basically turn into an instrument of the cover-up. And what they've done with this cover-up is we've seen a number of files that were redacted specifically against the law. And I think it's interesting to think, last time I was here, this was before the Epstein Files Transparency Act was passed.
Right.
The Epstein Files Transparency Act specifically says redactions should only apply in the case of national security and or victim identification. And in multiple instances now, we've seen that they have redacted the names of co-conspirators, of names of very powerful individuals. So if we want, one
Could
example.
you give an example of national security?
National security is a very interesting one because that's one that's really up to the DOJ. Oh, sorry, there's one third one, which is active investigation. So one of the reasons why this is really important is that there's currently, this is from Thomas Massey, a theory that because of this file,
They've started
they're
active
starting
investigations.
actively investigating a number of these cases, which they can now drag on for a long period, let's say up to 3 years until Donald Trump is out of office, to make sure that none of the other information comes to light. So even the Files Transparency Act gave them outs, but even within the outs that they had multiple cover-ups, right? So one of the more
Okay, so Darren Kinney says, so how do redactions work? He just explained it, but the redactions are according to the transparency law that Congress passed. So it depends on, it's situational how redactions work. But the redactions in this case are only supposed to be for victims, people who were victimized by Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump and the billionaire class, the Epstein class. People, so the victims, the women they victimized, and men in some cases, I think, as well. And the redactions are also for matters of national security. So if it's going to affect national security, like basically like maybe out a spy or something like that, then it's supposed to be redacted. So that's how the redactions work with this law.
egregious example is Les Wexner. Let's go to co-conspirators, Griffin, and let's put the Wexner cover up. So this is the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, and here Thomas Massey called him out, where he found a redacted piece inside of the file labeled co-conspirator. Thomas Massey says this is a well-known retired CEO. DOJ should unredact this. Why did they redact it? Let's go to the DOJ's explanation. He says the document you cite has numerous victim names. We have unredacted Wexner's name from the document. His name appears in the file thousands of times. DOJ is hiding nothing. However, that document did not have any victim name on it, not one. And specifically, they decided to redact co-conspirator here. Wexner, for those of you who haven't watched our previous episode, is the source, and some would speculate, the potential originator of the Epstein mythology. So this is a person who signs over power of attorney. He never fully explains his decades-long relationship with Epstein. He gives him the house where eventually some financial makeup right here in New York City, the infamous Epstein townhouse for like tens of millions of dollars, the largest townhome literally in the entire city. The
home is frequented by all these.
The home is frequented by Israeli prime ministers and all of these other individuals from meetings and financiers and Prince Andrew, and people are staying. I mean, it's a real destination for the Epstein class. Yeah, for all of these multi-billionaires. Yeah, full credit to Ro Khanna, the congressman. He's the person who coined that term. And I think it's important. And people are like, why do you even care about this? And I think that this story fundamentally is about how the rule of law does not apply to the rich and powerful. About
the stuff about okay, Darren, here's your explanation. The stuff about the victims needs to be hidden because the victims, the perpetrators, are billionaires and very powerful people, and they will, if they know the victims that are coming out against them, they will intimidate them, they will send their goons over to hurt them and their family, they'll sue them, they'll do it, This is how they get away with it. They use their money and their power to intimidate the victims. That's why the victims' names need to be redacted. They need to be protected. The perpetrators don't, but Pam Bondi and the Department of Defense and Todd Blanche, the second in charge there, are protecting the perpetrators because it's Donald Trump and all his friends. And Donald Trump ordered them to protect them. That's why Bondi, the department, the Attorney General and the whole department is corrupt, basically. They're supposed to be an independent actor, not work for Trump, but the two in charge at the Department of, at the Attorney General and the Assistant Attorney General right now are Trump's personal lawyers. So they do what Trump tells them, even though they're supposed to be independent of the executive branch, which is Trump. So this is why the victims' names need to be redacted. But they're redacting what Sagar's talking about right here is they're redacting Les Wexner's name, who's a powerful billionaire, and they got caught by Thomas Massey redacting the name, and he brought it up in a hearing and in public, and they unredacted Les Wexner's name. So now he's outed as a perpetrator, and he's a billionaire, so nothing's gonna happen to him, because nothing happens to billionaires in this country, because that's the way we let the legal system work, and we need to change it. The only way we're gonna change it is to rise up as a group, the 99% against the 1%, and make them change the laws, because Congress is not gonna change the laws on their own because they work for the billionaire class. We need to get rid of Citizens United, which was passed in 2010, which gives, maybe before some of you guys were born, which gives the billionaire class a way to donate unlimited amounts of money to representatives, Congress, senators, presidents, vice presidents, to their super PACs without being held accountable. They could do it anonymously through the super PAC. And then they just call up Donald Trump and say, hey, I put $10 million in your super PAC. You're going to do what I want. And Donald Trump is like, yes, sir, I'm a cuck. Yes, sir, I cuck for you. I'm the simp. So whoever called me a simp, Donald Trump's a simp. Okay, guys, so this podcast is super long. It's 3 hours. I'm not going to watch the whole thing here, but you should watch it on your own. Just as a side, this is
You've
pretty
definitely
funny.
seen this gymnast on your For You
I watched
page.
this a little while
This is
ago.
Sydney Smith, and she's proof you don't need a powerhouse logo to blow up. While
This girl has
influencers at big name
1.2
schools have
million
national TV
followers,
and massive media
and they're trying to
teams,
say it's because
Sydney
she's
was
flexible.
grinding at Southern Connecticut State.
I want to take an unofficial poll here. Do you think this girl has $1.2 million because she's flexible,
Then
or
came the video
because
that changed everything.
she looks
The
like the way
viral
she
W
looks?
pose. She dropped into a jaw-dropping flexibility hold, folding her legs into a perfect W shape, and holding it like it was nothing. It looked unreal. The
That's
clip
not
went
why she
everywhere,
has
and it
1.2
instantly
million
crowned her
followers.
the most flexible gymnast
This is why
in
she has
NCAA.
1.2 million followers.
Then in 2024, she
And
leveled up. She
this.
transferred to the University of Georgia, taking her viral fame from D2 and stepping straight into the SEC spotlight. You've definitely seen this gymnast on your For You page. This is Sydney
Okay,
Smith,
that's just
and
an aside, guys. What do you guys think about that? Does she have 1.2 million followers because she's the most flexible gymnast, or does she have 1.2 million followers because she has a nice ass? Yeah, I think it's the latter. Okay, guys, so I'm trying to find somebody asked me about polling. Okay, here we go.
Hi, I'm Joe Delaney. Today we're going to talk about what's the fastest way.
What's the fastest way to get rid?
was asked directly twice if she had any regrets about her or her husband's interactions with Epstein, and she said, I've never met Epstein, and she had only limited interactions with Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's former girlfriend and co-conspirator, and said that her husband's interactions with Epstein are well documented, and that neither of them had any knowledge of their crimes. So a lot to unpack from this interview.
Now, both her and the former president are set to appear for closed-door depositions in the House's Epstein probe later this year. She's pushing for those to be made public. What's the likelihood that that happens?
So we got some new insights from her comments in this interview as well, where she says that
You guys are new, go ahead and subscribe.
Deposition, but she would prefer it to be an open hearing. Now, saying she's going to show up, I think, is all Republicans on the Hill are looking for. They've said, we want to do this deposition first. Maybe we could do an open hearing in the future. They haven't ruled that out, but it seems like all signs are pointing for these depositions being on for the end of this month. Both Hillary and Bill Clinton are expected to appear separately February 26th and 27th.
All eyes will be on those depositions Danny Greer, thanks so much for the report.
There is more fallout from the Epstein files because there's so many of them. Reporters continue to go through them. And this latest news is that billionaire Tom Pritzker says he is retiring as executive chairman of Hyatt Hotels after his association with the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein came to light. He released a statement that said in part that he deeply regrets his ties to Epstein and co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell, and that he exercised terrible judgment in maintaining contact with them. CNN has also learned that 6 companies linked to Sarah Ferguson, the ex-wife of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, formerly Prince Andrew, are to be shut down. Ferguson is listed as the sole director of the companies. It's not clear exactly what services those companies provided, though.
Wait, Darren, are you talking about our ass? Yeah, that's what. I'm gonna be honest, that's why I originally looked at the video. It was fat. The Diddy documentary? No, I didn't watch the Diddy documentary. I should though. What's that on Amazon? I think I saw it on Amazon.
Well, the mayor of Los Angeles says the head of the LA Olympics should step down because of information about him revealed in the Epstein files. Karen Bass says Casey Wasserman's flirtatious emails with Ghislaine Maxwell are causing a distraction for the 2028 LA Games. Other people are
Casey Wasserman, Pritzker, you recognize these names? They're brothers, sisters, cousins, they all run in the same circles. They all come from very wealthy families. This is like the Rothschild effect. The Epstein class. Have you guys ever heard of the Rothschild family? You know, that's Jeffrey Epstein was in close contact with one of the Rothschilds, which is a wealthy family for hundreds of years now, who behind the scenes run many governments, including the Israeli government, our government, behind the scenes with their, you know, they're worth $1 trillion, the Rothschild family. But Jeffrey Epstein was in close contact with one of the Rothschilds, and through the emails, they email back and forth all the time. You know, that's the kind of power brokers that he was protected by. That's why he got away with this pedophilia, also protected by Trump and the Trump administration. People conveniently forget that Donald Trump was president when Epstein was in prison and was murdered in prison or killed himself, whatever you think happened there. But it's looking more and more like he didn't kill himself. He was trying to make a deal with the prosecutors at the time that he actually died. So what does that tell you?
You've got a great idea. GoDaddy had...
Yeah, more new polling here. I haven't seen this yet, so.
I started those remarks in Georgia, but this event is supposed to be focused on his domestic agenda, attempting to do what he believes his party hasn't done, to sell his accomplishments.
Trump's going to try and steal the election. He's going to try and cheat. You know, when he always says everybody, the Democrats are cheating on elections, that's called projection. He's outing himself. He's telling you what he's going to do, what he tried to do in 2020, and he's going to try it again. But now he's set himself up to make it easier for himself to cheat on the elections.
But I don't think we're good at public relations. What does that mean? You said that a couple times now. What do you mean by that? We don't sell the right job. We have to get the word out. Okay? If we can get the word out, we should win.
And as we noted earlier, President Trump is...
Do you feel like Trump's doing a great job with the economy? That's what he's saying there. Republicans don't sell it well enough.
From being one of the president's most strident supporters to one of his most vocal critics within the Republican Party before she stepped down in January. Now, early voting is underway there in a very crowded race to potentially replace her. And the president has thrown his support behind District Attorney Clayton Fuller, appearing with him just moments ago. NBC's Steve Kornacki has more on that race.
Behold, the ballot, Georgia's 14th Congressional District special election, March 10th to fill Marjorie Taylor Greene's seat here. Now look, you got to figure out who you want to vote for in this race. There's 22 candidates. Your next challenge, you show up on election day, you got to find the name on this ballot. As I said, 22 candidates overall. By the way, you have got Republicans, you've got Democrats, You've got independents, you've got libertarians on this ballot. This is a free-for-all. Everybody who's interested in having this seat appears on the same ballot. If nobody gets an outright majority, 50% plus one in that March 10th preliminary, there's going to be a runoff in April. Top two candidates, regardless of party. Could be two Republicans, could be a Democrat or Republican, whoever the top two are. Now, for all the crowded nature of this primary, the expectation here is that this really may be between two candidates primarily. Clayton Fuller is one of them. If that name doesn't mean anything to you outside of the district, well, maybe this will. He's got the endorsement of Donald Trump. And then Colton Moore is expected to be his main opponent here. Moore, a former state legislator. He was a staunch ally of Trump, especially after the 2020 election. All of Trump's claims about Georgia. Moore is a very Trump-like candidate in terms of his positions and his rhetoric, but he doesn't have Trump's endorsement. So what is going to give there between the two? Third name here, Sean Harris. He's a Democrat. He was the Democrat who ran in this district against Green in 2024. If he could unite the Democratic votes in this district behind him in the preliminary, he certainly could make it into that runoff. But could he actually win in a runoff in a district like this? Let me just put this in some perspective. What Georgia 14 is like. These are all the other special House elections that we've seen since Trump came back to the White House. We'll add Georgia 14.
If any of you guys are in Georgia, make sure you vote for somebody. If you want the economy to get better, vote for somebody who's going to vote against Trump's bills and tariffs and all that stuff. I don't know if you guys saw today that the Supreme Court has done Trump a favor by saving him from himself and declaring his tariffs illegal, which opens up a whole new mess, really, because now they have to pay back the tariff money, the billions. And I think it was about 100 billion, even though Donald says it's 7 trillion or whatever. About 100 billion in tariff money is what they collected. They have to figure out a way to pay that back. And you and I aren't going to get it back. The corporations that paid it and then charged us, they're going to get the tariff money back. So it's a lose-lose for the everyday people like us. Okay, so where's the other polling I wanted to show you guys?
Election shows Democrats are feeling highly motivated to get out and vote later this year, and that could be bad news for Republicans who are hanging on to a slim majority in the House. So let's go to CNN.
If you guys are new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Polling ahead of the midterm election shows Democrats are feeling highly motivated to get out and vote later this year, and that could be bad news for Republicans who are hanging on to a slim majority in the House. So let's go to CNN's chief data analyst, Harry Enten. What exactly are these poll numbers telling us, Harry?
Yeah, oh my goodness gracious, I can't believe that the first year of the Trump administration already pretty much done. We got a midterm election coming up in November, and what are the poll results showing us? Well, you know, that generic congressional ballot, right, that's matching up the Democrats versus the Republicans and the choice for Congress. And what do we see? We see the Democrats with an advantage on that generic ballot. Right now, they're ahead by 5 points. And what I think is so interesting is you look at this 5-point advantage, and it's the same exact advantage that Democrats held among registered voters when you went back to Trump's first term in January of 2018 at this point in the cycle. Now,
Does all my information come from YouTube? Is that the valid question that I'm ignoring? No, all my information doesn't come from YouTube. I actually read books and read articles and investigate stuff. I'm very well read. How about you? We can see you peeking at the left? What? What do you mean peeking at the left? In fact, right now I'm reading The Alchemist. There's no sponsorship here, but I highly recommend it. I've already read it once when I was younger, but I'm rereading it right now. It has nothing to do with politics. I mean, you could wrap it up with politics, but...
And why is that so notable? Because, I don't know if you remember, Pam, but back in 2018, Democrats were looking to pick up...
These are just my lives. If you watch my pre-recorded videos, you'll see more information that I've gathered myself. So go ahead and subscribe.
But at least according to what CNN polling at this point, the Democrats' lead looks very much the same now as it did back during the 2018 cycle. And that's good news for Democrats. But that's not the only piece of good news in this poll, because of course, if you know anything about midterm elections, you know that it's about turnout, right? Turnout is lower in a midterm election than it is in a presidential year, and it's all about that motivation to go out there and vote. And this is where I think it gets really interesting for Democrats. So if we break it down by motivation to vote, right? If you look at voters overall, Democrats have that 5-point advantage, which I mentioned. But look at those extremely motivated to turn out and vote. Those who would crawl over those hot polls to go out there and vote. And what do we see? We see that Democrats up by 16 points among those extremely motivated to vote. This makes a lot of sense to me. And why does it make a lot of sense? Because look at the elections that we had in 2025. We had Virginia governor. We had New Jersey governor. We had those special elections as well across the congressional special elections, as well as those for state legislative elections. And what we saw in those elections in 2025 were two things. One, that Democrats were far more likely to turn out than Republicans. And two, that resulted in Democrats vastly outperforming the 2024 baseline. So I think Democrats look at the voters overall, they say, hey, that's not too bad. But they look at the extremely motivated numbers and they say, ka-ching, because if that holds towards...
Yeah, I realize it looks backward in the live stream because I'm using my front camera on my phone.
Yeah, we'll see how those numbers actually translate in reality. And voters are also expressing their level of confidence in their congressional leaders, right?
Yeah, so this is where it gets really interesting, right? Because we see these generic ballot results, and you say, okay, you know what, this is good for Democrats. But then you look, okay, at the congressional leaders and say, okay, these congressional leaders, for Democrats, 8%, just 28% of Americans approve of the job that the Democratic
Okay, anyway, insert stupid comment here. That's my 30 minutes. If you're new, go ahead and subscribe. Thanks for the questions, and later.